What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 82. And Cope, the first episode officially in the postseason. Very, very sad, but there's a lot to look forward to, and we have a lot to get into on this episode. So let me introduce myself. I'm co-host Kyle Morello. We got co-host Jake Copestick next to me. Cope, the regular season's over, or the postseason's over, excuse me. We're moving on to the off season, which almost is as busy as the playing season itself. How are you feeling about the way the year ended and going into 2025 now?
Yeah, it was a really good season. Like the tournament always delivered, bunch of upsets. It was very exciting. Maybe the Final Four wasn't as exciting, but yeah, really good season. I've been saying this for the last handful of years, and probably will continue to say as soon as the championship game is played and then one shining moment ends, I am like, wow, I need another hobby. I need to find something else to do. The good thing is there's a lot of coaching news. We have a wild cycle we'll talk about. The transfer portal, I mean, it's going crazy. And I feel like we've had more Big Five news to talk about transfer portal wise than last year or the year before. So it still keep me on my feet. Like it still keep me busy. So can't complain right now.
Yeah, no, definitely can't complain right now, at all. So listen, like you said, we got a lot to get into. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it? And Cope, for the first time in a little bit, we've got some quick hitters coming your way. So get that ball. I don't know if you have a ball on you, but get that ball and let's get it rolling. Quick hitters. What do you got?
Well, yeah, I should have thought more about this ahead of time. I'm in our new equipment room at Penn, and we don't have any inflated footballs in here. We just have
That's
ones
okay.
that are still in the bag, need to be made. So I
Those
wish
are
I
Tom
had one.
Brady's favorites, so it's fine.
Unfortunately, yeah, whatever, man. You're just tight that you could never beat him as a Jets fan. Anyway, first of all, shout out to Caleb Barrett on Twitter. He won our bracket challenge. I finished fourth. Kyle, do you have any idea where you finished?
Um, I think 50th. I'm actually going to look right now, but it wasn't good, Cope. It was not a good year for ball knowers, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's correct because ball knowers had UConn losing to Auburn in the Sweet 16 and ultimately making the championship game and losing to Houston, who lost to your favorite school, the Duke Blue Devils. But shout out to Caleb. He not only picked the championship game correctly, he picked the champion in UConn. And how about this, Kyle? He also picked Alabama to go to the Final Four.
Wow.
He had three or four Final Four teams. So shout out to Caleb. We're going to hook him up with a PlayStation gift card that hopefully he can play NCAA March Madness on sometime soon if EA Sports decides to come out with that as well as NCAA football. So yeah, shout out to Caleb. Three or four Final Four teams, Kyle. Pretty damn good.
Pretty good.
Pretty damn good.
Pretty good.
And then lastly, before we get into a recap of the Final Four, some coaching movement, some player movement. How about Kyle? Instead of a transfer, let's talk about somebody landing a freshman. And it's the University of Pennsylvania. They've landed 2025 guard Jay Jones. He's going to be doing a post-grad season at Cushing Academy coming up this year. So he will be a 2025 guy, not this season, the season after. Comes from a basketball family. His father, Joe Jones, is the head coach of the Boston Terriers in the Patriot League. And his uncle, James Jones, he is going to be playing against in the Ivy League because James Jones is the head coach of the Yale Bulldogs that just beat Auburn, who Kyle had making the championship game this year.
That always
So
comes back to that, man.
yeah, that's really something that you had the most dominant team maybe in the history of the tournament, and you had losing
Well,
in Boston the
listen.
second weekend.
I don't mean to interrupt. I don't mean to interrupt the quick hitters, but I will say, in my defense, part of the bracket picking strategy is picking plus leverage situations where maybe other folks who are picking the bracket might not have. And that was a matchup where analytically Auburn was in the top 5 or 6 and like every website you saw. And obviously UConn was number one. But like that's a matchup where Auburn shouldn't have been a 4 seed and they were a 4 seed playing against UConn. So I'm gonna go with that leverage matchup. And it didn't work out. And it sucks that it didn't work out because obviously we all knew UConn was the best team in college basketball and they proved it. So that's my piece. That's why I did that. I don't think I'm at fault for that. It just sucks the way it turned out because last year I picked UConn as a 4 seed to win it all and it worked out. And it was kind of the same deal. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Continue.
Okay. Well, no, I was pretty much going to finish up here. His father, Joe, who's the head coach at Boston, he was an assistant at Villanova from 1997 to 2003. And also, before going to Boston, was the head coach in the Ivy League at Columbia from 2003 to 2010. So, yeah, Instead of us talking about a transfer or a coaching move that we're going to hear a shitload about in this episode, Kyle, how about the Penn Quakers? They land a freshman to add to their class next season with some Ivy League history in his family, coming from a basketball family.
How about
So,
that?
Final Four.
Yeah, let's get into it. Final Four. We're gonna kind of umbrella the Final Four championship here, just because we have a lot to talk about. But uh, like you said early on there, not really as exciting as we would have hoped. But obviously, UConn coming out victorious in the end. They ended up beating Alabama, which honestly, Alabama gave them their toughest test of the entire tournament. That game was tied at 56 with, I believe, 10-ish minutes to go, somewhere in like the 8 to 10 minute range left in the game. Very impressive game by Alabama. They did everything right. They shot over 50% from three. Um, that's a good team. Unfortunately, UConn's just dominant, and they ended up winning by 14 anyway. And then of course Purdue beating NC State in the first game of that Saturday night for the Final Four, which was also close for a decent amount of time, but Purdue ended up pulling away. And then the championship, UConn's what was the final score? That 75-60, 75 to 60, uh, hoisting up that trophy. They're up six at halftime. Now, Edey put up 37 points of Purdue's 60 points, which is very impressive. But I will say, Cope, I know that Dan Hurley, either after the game or like in the following days after the game, said that the strategy was to let Edey have his. Obviously, going up against Klingon, not many people can put someone one-on-one against Edey. Klingon is that person. Still went off against him, but they guarded the 3-point line extremely well. They only let Purdue take 7 threes. They only made one of them. It was a masterclass strategy from Dan Hurley. And UConn, highest point differential in tournament history, plus 124 over those 6 games. And the first back-to-back championship, of course, since Florida in 06-07. But Cope, that Florida team ran it back after winning in 06. This UConn team lost 3 people to the NBA, if not more. I think it was 3 people. They lost a whole bunch of people overall. It was almost a new roster. There was a few holdovers, but almost a new roster. Tristan Newton being the most outstanding player of the Final Four, being one of them. Um, I know that this was just, it wasn't the best, like most exciting Final Four, but UConn's dominance was just incredible. So I'm going to let you speak on that because this is something that we don't see very often with teams dominating like this. I know Villanova in 2018 was a good one too. But I think at least these last 2 years, especially this year, maybe the most dominant stretch in college basketball of the modern era. I know obviously the UCLA teams way, way back with Lou Alcindor, Bill Walton, were in that regard as well. But these two teams and this team in particular, Cope, incredible.
Yeah, I hate to keep harping on you not taking them to win the national championship, but I understand that you want to take a team that you want to go against the grain here, but like they were unequivocally the best team this year. Like that, I just trusted my eyes and was like, I don't think anyone is going to beat them. They can win a low scoring game. They can win a high scoring game. They can be in a game with somebody where it's close, and then they can have a quick 10-0 run and go on a kill shot. They can figure things out. Like they're so solid and so good in every single way. They have so many good defenders. Stephon Castle was great in the championship game, guarding Braden Smith, a smaller guy who's quick with the ball in his hands. Like they can take away the three. They can shoot the three equally as well. They have size inside. They have a great fifth-year point guard who's got a championship pedigree. They bring in Cam Spencer, who's a fifth-year player, who's a terrific scorer, shooter, can make things happen on defense. Like there's just so much going for them. They're so good in every area. There's not a weakness that you could attack. You just, if you wanted to beat them, you just had to play at a very, very high level to do so. And it's just not always possible because you have a team in UConn that's like Danny Hurley said, like they wanted to be as bulletproof as possible. They wanted to be as sound as they could in every single area so that they could be as bulletproof as possible, and you couldn't really attack them one certain way. So, yeah, just an absolutely dominant team. It's kind of hard to put into words, Kyle, just because like pretty much everything that needs to be said about this team has been said. You almost run out of adjectives for it. But Yeah, just absolutely spectacular to go back to back. Losing Jordan Hawkins and Andre Jackson to the NBA, losing Adama Sanogo, Joey Calcaterra, Naheem Aline off the bench. Aline, who was good in the tournament last year for them when they won. Like they lost five guys from last year's team, and they might have put together an even better one. It's crazy how they did it. Got to give credit to Danny Hurley. I know that video is going around from him after they lost to Villanova, saying you better get us now because it's coming, and he's right. I mean, they have everything you need: the fan base, the donors, the recruiting base, the coach. Like UConn has everything they need to be the premier program from now to whenever. It's a destination job. I don't think Hurley would ever leave there. He's probably going to retire there. Like they're not going anywhere soon. And with what they've did and how he recruits people and what he looks for in players to get guys that win. You look at a guy like Caravan, like you just look at him, you don't think he's the fastest or the most athletic guy, but guess what? That dude could shoot. He'll defend. He plays his ass off. He's a great team player, great glue guy that they need. Like they are everything you want in a program. They're not going to go anywhere soon. We'll see what they add in the transfer portal. Because we're sure they're going to be losing a lot of guys to the NBA, to graduation of the NBA, to potentially go for a three-peat. But man, like they were just a well-oiled machine all year. And even when they played Alabama, so Alabama was 11 to 23 from 3-point line. You were close. They almost shot over 50%.
They
But
were at one point. They were shooting like 70% from three at one point in that game.
you can play that well, and it almost didn't matter.
Yeah.
It almost didn't matter. You were just playing a team that was that much better than you. So, yeah, I'm not going to keep going anymore. Bottom line, this team is really good. They're repeat champs for a reason, and they literally made it look easy. Somehow, some way, they won 6 straight games by double digits again, and they made this tournament look even easier than last year's, and they made last year's look like a cakewalk.
Yeah. It was, and last year was dominant. Like last year, everyone and it wasn't expected as much per se because they were a 4 seed, but they were dominant. And then they come back this year, like you said, they retool and they're even more dominant. Donovan Clingan's going to be a lottery pick, if not top 5, depending on how that draft falls. It's also a very weak draft class, but still, the talent on that team was crazy. The depth on that team was crazy. They were disciplined. The coaching was incredible. And I tweeted this after the game on Monday, but blue blood in every sense of the word. The most modern day blue blood we have. They've won 6 national titles since 1999. They're now they're up there. They are in the top 4 or 3 or 4 of national championships ever in college basketball history. It's a blue blood, folks. It is a blue blood, 100%. No denying. But yeah, that Cope is a wrap for the 2024 college basketball season, which is crazy. So real quick, just want to say thank you guys for following along this entire year. We appreciate your support. And I'll say this again at the end of the episode, like I always do, but we appreciate your support throughout the season, following our coverage. We're going to hope to have even more for you next year. So stay tuned for that. But also, we got a lot to go over this offseason, which starts right now. Cope, we're going to get into the coaching carousel right now. There are a lot of names we're going to get to, but we have to start with maybe the most bizarre chain reaction in college basketball coaching history. I'd have to look into that more, but I think it's definitely has to be up there. So here's what happened, folks, if you're unaware. Rob Lanier got fired at SMU, which not really sure why. They weren't bad in any stretch, but I guess they wanted a change of scenery, change of direction. So he goes. Andy Enfield at USC, also probably looking for a change of scenery, decides to take this SMU job. So he does. So now obviously USC is a position open. So where does USC go? They hop on the Muss bus. They go poach Eric Musselman from Arkansas, Cope and I's guy. We love the Muss bus, which Muss had done an incredible job at Arkansas. I know this year wasn't the best for them, but they had made 2 straight Elite Eights, 3 straight Elite Eights before that.
They made 2 Elite Eights in the Sweet 16.
In the Sweet 16, yeah. Very successful team. They were always a player in the SEC under Muss. Goes to USC, which is definitely an interesting move, especially they're going to be in the Big Ten now, which is so, so weird. I still can't really comprehend that. But going to be in the Big Ten. They're going to have Big Ten recruiting, Big Ten money. Definitely better than the Pac-12. So that's a good hire by USC and a good move from us, I think, too. So then the Arkansas job opens up. And as I'm sure you may have heard, not that anyone was expecting it, but John Calipari goes interconference from Kentucky to Arkansas in one of the biggest coaching changes um, of this century, I think I would say. I think it's definitely up there. Obviously, Calipari being at Kentucky for 15 years, won a national championship with Anthony Davis and Mike Gilchrist in 2012. Uh, had an almost perfect season in 2015 with that loaded Kentucky team, obviously losing to Frank Kaminsky in Wisconsin that year. Was pretty successful up until about 2019 when they just could not get out of the second round of the tournament and kept losing the double-digit seeds. Um, Obviously, that was capped off by Jack Golke in Oakland this year, going down as a 3 seed to the 14. And there was some unrest in Lexington about his future and having, obviously there was no tournament in 2020, so 4 years of not success in the tournament, and they missed the tournament in 2021. Or they missed the tournament one of those years, I think. I forget exactly what year it was. I think it was 21, but uh, just not good things, and the job security was uneasy. And I think there was probably a little bit of talk about him getting bought out, but they ended up retaining him, and then he bolts anyway to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and he's now the head coach of Arkansas. Cope, I can't say either of us expected this to be coming, especially in this chain of events being ignited by a firing that didn't need to happen in the first place. What is your opinion on one of the craziest domino effects that we've seen in quite some time?
Well, it all started, Kyle, and the whole reason SMU made that move is because they're going to the ACC. So they thought that they needed to make a splash hire and hire a better coach, so to speak, and maybe a bigger name to compete in the ACC when you have to play against the Dukes and the North Carolinas of the world. So they fire Rob Lanier, who doubled his win total from his first season at SMU. He won 10 games his first season, 20 in his second season, and they even made the NIT, and they were able to play in the postseason. So crazy that that happens. So he ends up at Rice and is still going to be in the AAC coaching against Temple this year. And Andy Enfield, like it just felt like things got, I don't know if stale is the right word, but he made an Elite Eight, but it doesn't seem like USC is a spot that is going to be up in arms in basketball if you're not making deep runs in the tournament all the time, because they are paying their head football coach Lincoln Riley $110 million.
Yeah.
So they missed the tournament this year. They lose in the first round in Michigan State the year prior under Andy Enfield, and pretty sure he said at his press conference, Kyle, like, I would not have taken this job if they weren't going to the ACC, because why would you go down from the Pac-12 or Power 5 to the American? But seemed like good opportunity to, a fresh face, I guess, do change of scenery for him. He takes over there. Muss is a West Coast guy. Believe he spent a majority of his childhood in the Orange County, Southern California area. So he takes over at USC, and then, there was reports of Jerome Tang, and there was reports of maybe Will Wade, maybe Chris Beard, and no one decided to take Arkansas up on the offer. So it comes up, I listened to his press conference today, and John Tyson, the guy who owns Tyson Chicken and their big plane on Route 13 before you get to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, is a good friend of John Calipari. He calls him up, says, I want you to at least talk to the athletic director. And things just moved kind of quickly. It seemed like there was a lot of, the fact that Calipari signed a lifetime contract 5 years ago, and then he had to hold a press conference with Mitch Barnhart that said, yeah, he's going to stay this year. Like, it's just crazy how the situation deteriorated at Kentucky with how beloved he was. But Arkansas, Kyle, we know how good of a crowd they have, how good of a home court advantage. It's one of the best in the country. It is still SEC. He'll get to potentially stick it to Kentucky 2 or 3 times over the course of a regular season in the SEC. They have the boosters. They have the backing. John Tyson, is the chicken man, if you will. I keep feeling like I'm talking about Gus Fring and Breaking Bad when I say the chicken man, but he's putting a lot of these funds forward. I mean, Calipari's going to be getting paid $7 million a year with incentives on there for making rounds of the tournament and such like that. And from what we hear, upwards of $5 million of NIL money a year. Like, he's going to go somewhere that he's wanted. Arkansas wants him. And who wouldn't? Like, yes, he's failed a couple times in the tournament, Kyle, but this is a a tournament with such high variance that one bad day, much like your conference tournament, one bad day, like we saw Richmond, one bad Thursday afternoon where the game tipped off at like 11:30 in the morning and they're done. One bad day you have could be 12. Your BYU, it's 12:45 on Thursday. One bad game, one bad 40 minutes, you're done. It's a high variance tournament that's single elimination. Like, these things happen sometimes. And if that's what you're going to get mad at and not his body of work and his longevity and how he's an NBA factory, he consistently brings in good talent. Even the transfers he brought in, Antonio Reeves was great this year. They didn't, the Kentucky fans are all riled up. They weren't seeing that postseason success they're accustomed to. So they kind of kicked him to the curb. He's going to go down to Arkansas, where he's going to have pretty much everything that he needs at his disposal and a rabid fan base that's still in the SEC. It's wild that it got to this point, but Kyle, he's going to win there. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, because in his press conference, the whole clip that's going viral, he said, I met with the team today, but we don't have a team. There is no team. There's no players.
They have one rostered player right now.
And I think he's going to decommit. I think it's a freshman.
I forget exactly. I looked earlier briefly, but
yeah, they don't have a team. So he's going to have to bring guys in, and he's going to have to work the transfer portal. He's going to have to get some of his guys, like I think Jaden Quaintance and Carter Knox, who are top 100 guys in the upcoming class, are like, Kentucky's had some freshmen decommit from there. And I think they're going to follow him to Arkansas, and he's going to hit the ground running. So I don't know what it's going to look like this year, Kyle, because he's going to have to throw a roster together, and now people are declaring for the draft. You had to wait on some guys to come back to see maybe who you have in totality here in the transfer portal, but I don't know when it's going to happen. But I can tell you this: he's a damn good basketball coach, and I've even been hard on him too. But you look at the guys Kentucky's trying to replace him with, and it seems like they're down to Mark Pope, who pretty publicly seems to be a fourth or fifth option, because they're not getting Billy Donovan to go there. Every single time a job opens up that's big time, they throw Billy Donovan's name in there. He's not leaving the NBA to recruit 24/7 and pay guys and deal with
not in this current state of college basketball. No.
He's not. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but he's going to put a team together. He's going to put a good program together. He's going to have everything he needs, great fans. John Calipari is going to win there, and Kentucky is going to be so, like, they're going to be kicking themselves. They let this guy go. I'm actually seeing from Pete Thamel, Kentucky's targeting Mark Pope, who played for Rick Pitino at Kentucky. So that seems to be your very public fourth or fifth option. I don't think it's a bad hire by any means, but Mark Pope is not John Calipari. And when you look at how many good coaches there are in the SEC, he's probably not even in that top half. So a wild turn of events. I never would have thought that was possible at all. I never would have thought this was ever possible, but must made me an Arkansas fan. You see how crazy the fans are, how much they love basketball down there. And I think it's a perfect match. It's a new challenge for Calipari. He's got something to prove now, even with everything he's done in his career. They're going to win. They're going to win a lot. And I think he could win a national championship there for sure.
Which is wild to say. I mean, not that Arkansas is like a bad program historically by any means. I mean, they've won a national championship before, but they haven't been like, they made Elite Eights, they made Sweet 16s, obviously under Muzz. I don't know if they would ever have been considered like national championship contenders in those stretches. They were good teams. I don't know if they were, especially like the second to last year, they were an 8 seed, but like this could get them to be a perennial national contender, which is something that has been a while for Arkansas. It's been a little bit. They've been relevant, but they haven't been like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, they haven't been on Kentucky's level of like, they're getting all these freshmen, and it's different. It's different with Calipari. Calipari, as great as Muss is, Calipari's Calipari.
Yeah, he's the best recruiter ever. Probably the best recruiting guy ever. But here's another thing. Like, Arkansas is still a top tier program, but nobody's Kentucky. Kentucky's in an S tier, with your Duke, Carolina, and Kansas pretty much. But Arkansas, like, it's a really good program. They won a championship with Nolan Richardson. I think they beat Duke that year. Yeah, I think it was 1994. They beat Duke with Nolan Richardson as the coach, Eddie Sutton. Like, they're a really good program. Muss was there. And when they had Mike Anderson, like it's not like they made any crazy runs and were as relevant as they were now, but it is a damn good program. And with Musselman, with their a top three, top five and type environment they have there, and with how deep he was getting people, and he was getting people to transfer, and he was getting good freshmen, like he kind of reignited the flame, and you
Yeah.
saw how good they could be to make that an attractive job. And Calipari, who's coached in the SEC a while, has seen that, seen the fan base and everything. Like when it seemed like when he got approached, um, that was that was a job he wanted. I mean, it lured him away from Kentucky that he had a lifetime contract at. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like there,
That's
it's not Kentucky. It's still a really, really good program that you can win a lot at.
yeah. And there's no reason to think he won't. I know obviously the last few years of Kentucky haven't gone as planned, but if there's anyone that can do it, it's Calipari. He's won everywhere he's gone. So uh yeah, craziness. Anyway, that's only a few coaching hires, Cope, that have taken place in this cycle. There's definitely a few more. Um, so I'm gonna let you pick one that you want to talk about real quick. I'll pick one I want to talk about. But who do you like, or what coaching hire stands out that's happened so far in this very early cycle?
So I have two that I'm looking at, but the one that I'm going to scout, the one that I'm going to point out here, and this isn't nationally, but I'm just going to like specifically talk about the conferences that Big Five teams are in. How about St. Louis? They fired Travis Ford. They hired Indiana State's Josh Schertz. Didn't seem like that was exactly like a terrifically kept secret. They were just waiting for Indiana State to finish their NIT run that they lost a close game to Seton Hall. Really, really good game. Really, really good game. But they had a terrific team this year. And guys like Julian Larry and Robbie Avila, who is, America's sweetheart. And it's a shame we didn't get to see him play in the tournament because that would have been awesome. But Josh Schertz, known for his X's and O's and his strategy. Just a really, really pretty team to watch. And if you're a fan of the sport, like Indiana State really, really played the right way with how they were on offense. Robbie Avila, like he can shoot, but also like what a smart guy, man. I mean, you look at him and you're like, oh, this guy's really a hunk here, and he can pass. Like he's just such a smart guy. Like just a terrific team to watch here, and it's a shame that I don't know if they exactly made a case to be a tournament team, but you could certainly argue that they could have been up there. But regardless, the point being with Josh Schertz, the thing I like the most is most of his Indiana State team is in the portal. And Robbie Avila put his name in the portal, and apparently he had a do not contact disclaimer on his portal entry, which means he probably knows where he's going. And at St. Louis, it's a good job. Like the facilities seem pretty good there. They play in a nice arena at Chaffetz. It's a program where they're going to have NIL. They have support. And I think with a guy like Josh Schertz, who clearly can coach his tail off and is really good, he now goes to a place in a better conference that's got more resources for NIL to recruit better guys. And I really think he can take off there. He's certainly going to have the support to help him out. And he's a damn good basketball coach that I think would get it figured out anywhere, anyway. So I look at that hire that he can bring some of his Indiana State guys. He met with Gibson Jimerson to try and get him to come back to do his fifth year there. If he can get him and you can get your core Indiana State guys, you're looking at a really good A-10 team in year one. So just wasn't working with Travis Ford. They had some good teams. It was, at least what he called a rebuild last year for the Billikens. But he gets let go. And I think Indiana State made a really, really good hire in Josh Schertz, and I think he can build a very competitive team in his first year there.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely like a really, really good X and O's guy, like you said. That Indiana State team was one of the most exciting offenses in college basketball last year. Um, and if they can keep Jimerson and if they can get Robbie Vila or how do you say his last name?
Avila.
Avila. Got you. I watch a lot of baseball. Avila is definitely a popular one. But yeah, I think they can. I think they can be a really, really good team, and they can probably be in that upper echelon of the A10. So it'll be exciting to see. And Cope, I'm actually going to stick in the A10 here. Obviously, we're going to have to talk about Duquesne. Keith Dambrot retires, and who gets promoted? Assistant coach Drew Joyce III. If you're unaware of who Drew Joyce III is, he's one of LeBron James's best friends, high school teammate. Obviously, they both played under Keith Dambrot for a couple years there at St. Vincent St. Mary's in Akron. listen, I personally don't know a ton about Drew Joyce III's like coaching ability and X's and O's, but if he's been learning under Keith Dambrot, who's obviously a very good coach, and Duquesne, made the tournament, won a game this year, and he grew up around the greatest player of all time and has been in basketball for many, many, many years. I think this could be a really, really intriguing situation for Duquesne. Um, and Cope, there's also a non-zero chance that Bronny James plays in the A10 next year. I'm
That
not
would be
gonna
something.
I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen because he also declared for the draft. He put his name in the portal. Obviously, he was at USC. Um, like there's a non-zero chance that the A10 is gonna see Bronny James next year. I have no idea if there's any validity to that statement, so I don't take my word for it. But it's possible. It's possible, and that would be something. He also still might try to go to the NBA, which I could see that happening too. Even though I don't think personally he's ready, we'll see. But regardless, I think this has the potential to be a very good hire by Duquesne. And listen, I love seeing the A10 making these good hires to get better because I think the A10 is a great league, and it deserves to be more than a one or two bid league. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm really, really excited about that. And Cope, finally, we have transfer portal. And I'm like overwhelmed looking at our notes right now and looking at all these names that are in here. But I'm gonna just go down the list real quick and then we can talk about some names. So here we go. Drexel, we've got Amari Williams, Justin Moore, who's going to Loyola Chicago, Lamar Odom Jr., Jamie Bergens. From Temple, you got Heiser Miller, Jewel White, Taj Thawat, Emmanuel Okpomo, Deuce Roberts. Nova, we've got Trey Patterson, Lance Ware, Brendan Hazen, Mark Armstrong, who declared for the draft but maintained his eligibility. LaSalle got a guy already, Demetrius Lilly from Penn State, but transferring out a lot of people. Jameer Brickus, Khalil Brantley, Anwar Gill, Deshaun Shepard, Tommy Gardler, Rokas Yotsutes, which just happened on the day of this recording on Thursday night. And then for Penn, transferring in is Michael Zanoni from Mercer. Clark Slackert is out of eligibility in the Ivy League, committed to USC, so that's a great pickup for the Muss Bus, which I'm very excited for. Andrew Laskowski's out of Ivy League eligibility, and Tyler Perkins is also in the transfer portal. And of course, still St. Joe's, bringing in Derek Simpson from Rutgers, but transferring out is Lynn Greer III. Krista Sonico committed to Providence, Kasper Klachik, and Christian Winborn, who hasn't been with the team for a little while, but did officially put his name in the portal and is committed to Tobin Anderson and Iona. That was a lot of information to throw at you guys. And Cope, I know that's even a lot of information for you, and you've seen the information and you know the information. So I don't know exactly where to start, but who are some names that I know we talked about last week or the last time we recorded about names that have surprised us. Obviously, there's been more. Um, what name or a few names do you think would be either most detrimental to their team leaving or some players that at least intrigue you being in the portal? I know there's a lot to tackle here, so I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but who are some guys in this portal that you're like, okay, this is really interesting?
I thought Brandon Hausen coming in today for Villanova was a little bit surprising, especially down the stretch here. I mean, he was able to play a lot as a freshman, which, as we know, in years past, it's not really a thing at Villanova to play as a freshman. But he got thrown in the fire early. I thought he got a little bit better this year. And I mean, the 3-point stroke has been there his freshman and his sophomore year. And he really showed that he off the bench. I mean, he could really get hot and flip a game. Did it against Providence. Had a couple of good games against DePaul. He showed that he could go in there and really give him a spark plug here. So I was a little bit surprised to see that because at least for a school like Villanova, they're going to give you opportunities to put up threes, and for him, like he's got a green light. He's got a green light because when you can get as hot from three as he can, I mean he can really break a game open. That was only a 1-possession game. In the blink of an eye, it's a 4-possession game. And can give you some breathing room. So I was surprised to see that. And then sticking with Villanova, I was surprised to see Mark Armstrong. Here's the thing: I was surprised to see him declare this early, considering he still has 2 years of eligibility left. But at the same time, I wasn't because if you're able to do this, I believe the rule is you can declare for the draft once, and then once you declare a second and or a third time, I think it's two. I think once you declare for the third time, it's two or three. Then like you have to like you're gone. But if you can go through the NBA draft process and you can go through workouts and see how you stack up, you could potentially get feedback from teams on, well, we need to see more of this out of you if you want to potentially get drafted, get a training camp invite. There's no detriment to that at all for me. All while you still maintain your college eligibility. And Villanova has, four or five spots to fill right now. I don't imagine that they're going to be like, hey man, like you're on a time crunch. We got to get this thing figured out. Like it's not like they have one spot left. It's like, hey, you make a decision or we're going to fill it. Like they still have some leeway with the roster to certainly welcome him back if he wants. So I guess I know that can be a little alarming to see. Oh, he declared for the draft, he's gone. But like more people should do this. I think it doesn't hurt you at all. You can always come back. Doesn't hurt you at all. Go through the NBA draft process, see what that's like, get feedback, see how you stack up. Go to the combine. If a private work, stuff like that. I don't think there's any detriment to that at all. So I still think he'll come back, but if he leaves, totally different story for Villanova.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I also was surprised by Hazen going to the transfer portal. The rumor has it that it might be UConn, which that's terrifying if that's the truth. Obviously, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, for Armstrong, like I agree with you. Yes, it's too early. I think there's definitely some more development to be had, but there's no detriment in going, seeing what's out there. Like you said, getting workouts in, getting evaluations from teams, and seeing what you have to work on for the upcoming year. And then if you want to go again, you can go again. Excuse me. Um, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it's a good move. If he stays in the draft, I don't think it's a good move unless maybe he is told something that he'll get drafted in a certain position. But I think overall that's a good move for him. Can definitely say I was a little surprised by it, but yeah, I definitely think that's not a bad deal at all. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to go down the list here. I did want to talk about Clark Slacker too. I know obviously not that he was going to go back to Penn. He's out of Ivy League eligibility, but it's a really, really fun scenario with him going to USC playing for Muss Bus. Um, Obviously, with us liking Eric Musselman and Clark Slacker being at Penn for so long, we love to see that. So I definitely want to get your opinion with all those factors involved on what you think of Clark Slacker going out west to Southern California.
Yeah, I mean, he's from LA as well. So for him to go home, play for a big time program, play for Muss, play for a place that's probably right down the street from him, and probably get paid a good amount of coin as well. Um, I really like this move for him. Now, I think it's interesting to see Kyle when because of all the conference realignment to see USC probably like midweek fly to Rutgers and fly to Nebraska and fly to Penn State. I I'm eager to see if that affects anybody with going to school and then practicing and multiple games a week where you're potentially flying across the country for. Like they're not really close to anybody. They have long flights everywhere they're going.
They're close to
So
UCLA. That's it.
that's it.
And Oregon, I guess.
That's it. Like it's going to be interesting to see if that affects anybody because we just saw Cameron Brink leave for the WNBA. She don't want to travel across the country. Uh, Tara Vonderveer, she just retired. Who knows, with everything she's done, if she's going to want to fly across the country and have that. So I'm eager to see if that affects anybody. But as far as this game goes, I mean, he can play. He can play and he can score. So I think he'll be fine in the Big Ten. I mean, maybe he's a little bit undersized for the athletes he's going to be playing against in a Power Five conference. But I mean, this guy's got some serious shooting ability, some wiggle in the paint, like a good mid-range game, a good floater game. I mean, Penn just ran him off a million dribble handoffs and made life hell for the defense because you give him a little bit of room, he can pull up floater. This dude can get buckets for sure, and especially with Muss coaching him, trying to get the most out of him as well. And I'm eager to see. I think I'm also really eager to see the team that comes with it and that's built around him. Um, because all they have right now, I believe, is Josh Cohen from UMass, who transferred to Arkansas, was there for like not even a week, and then Muss bolted and he went with him. So I'm eager to see what they have around him as well. But this dude can score in his sleep, and I think maybe not on the level he did at Penn, because we saw Jordan Dingle go from Ivy League to the Big East, and obviously didn't put up the numbers he did. But this dude's still going to be able to score at the Big Ten level, and he can play. He can play. I think he's going to make Muss very happy.
No, he's a hooper. He's 100% a hooper. Um, I think he will make Muss very happy. And listen, he can shoot the shit out of the basketball, so that translates anywhere. I know he is a little undersized, like you said, but I think he'll be all right for sure. One more I want to talk about before we sign off here. That was unfortunate that he was in the portal, and then now is a very intriguing destination that this person went to, and that would be Krista Sandico, who went to Providence. Obviously, he originally committed to Providence in 2021, decommitted a year later, ended up going to Hawk Hill, had to sit out his first year, play last year, and though he was banged up, showed glimpses of being a really, really good player. Um, and now he's back to Providence. He's back in the Big East. And you can look at this two ways. From the St. Joe's perspective, obviously it sucks. You don't want to lose talent, especially because, this year's team so far was the team that had the chance to make the tournament, and they ended up not having the best A10 season, but they still go to the semifinals of that tournament and very well could have won that game against VCU. But then you look at it from a Villanova perspective now. Now they're going to have to go against him at Providence, and he's going to have 3 more years of eligibility there. So there's definitely two ways to look at this. But Cope, from your perspective, from a St. Joe's perspective of him leaving and now Villanova going out to play against him, what do you make of this move?
So yeah, I mean, he was originally committed to Providence under Cooley, and then flipped and went to St. Joe's. And although he had the red shirt and sit the year, I mean, he showed you how good he could be, Kyle, and he showed you that he had some flashes of dominance. I was at the St. Joe's Duquesne game. I think he was good for 20 and 10 that game. And even in his first year, battling some injuries where at times he wasn't on the floor consistently, couldn't get into a rhythm. I mean, he showed some flashes of just about everything. He showed you he could shoot the three. He can rebound. He can block shots as a big guy inside. He can pass. Like, he really showed you some flashes of brilliance in just about every area. And I think Kim English is going to get the most out of him. Big Kim English guy. I am. I mean, I think he's terrific, and those guys played hard. They definitely matched his energy and like they played like their coach's personality, certainly. And not only that, but Josh Odoro's leaving as well. He's out of eligibility. You potentially slide Creased right in there, and he becomes your day one starter. I mean, if he can stay healthy, Kyle, he's good enough to play in any league in America, especially one as physical as the Big East. Maybe there's a bit of a learning curve for him playing against that every single night if he stays healthy and has to acclimate to that, but I think he's going to be fine there. It's going to be a very quick learning curve, if there's even one for him. I mean, he showed you some really, really good stuff when he could be on the floor consistently and play a lot of minutes. So it sucks for St. Joe's, Kyle, because I know the staff raved about him and they were so excited for him to play when he finally was eligible and was healthy this year. And then for him to bolt after showing you a lot of stuff that you thought you could build on and having a nice run in the conference tournament, like, it sucks, but that's college basketball now.
Yeah. And it's still taking some time to get used to. I personally, obviously, always loved when players would just, ride out 3 or 4 years at their school. I know that's obviously like very, very old. They changed the rule for um, high school players going to the NBA, like when we were really young, or fairly young. So I liked it that way, but then you had the one and dones who just went and they left, and that was that. And now with NIL and transfer portal, it's just a completely different landscape. College players aren't necessarily pressured on getting in the league as fast as possible because they can make some dollars in college. They can also develop their game more because they're getting paid a decent amount. So this is an example of that because, who knows in years past if Kreese would have been like, all right, I want to either stick it out at St. Joe's or, try to go somewhere else. So it's, it's something we're gonna have to get used to. I still don't know 100% if I love it or if I hate it because there's definitely like I love for the players because they're empowered, but I hate it for fans because it's definitely it's an interesting thing that's happening right now. So St. Joe's is being a victim of that obviously right now, and that stinks. But this is a good move for him to get into that higher competition threshold. But it does suck for St. Joe's, unfortunately. And they're going to have to now figure it out, especially with Kasper Klaczyk leaving as well, who was their backup big man. So, um, yeah. But I think I do have confidence in Billy Lang to be able to figure it out because he's been, at least the last few years, a pretty good recruiter. And, we'll see what happens with people coming into St. Joe's, like Derek Simpson being one of them. So we will see. I think that's pretty much all we got. I mean, there's college basketball never sleeps, even in the offseason, Cope. But any final thoughts here before we take our episode to the brink here?
So I actually did have one more thing because I do want to talk about Derek Simpson going to St. Joe's. But before that, it seems like Mark Pope is Kentucky's guy.
Okay.
He's lined up. Also saw a tweet that I think is important to emphasize a lot. UK did not aggressively, a tweet from Matt Norlander, quote, UK did not aggressively pursue Billy Donovan at any point over the past 4 days, in quotes, was also told there was no contact with Rick Pitino. So I think we can finally put the frickin' Billy Donovan thing to bed. He's not, I would think it would take something drastic for him to go back to college. I
Yeah.
don't think it's happening.
Well,
It's
the
just,
Chicago Bulls would do that to you.
yeah. And it's also, it's the same thing that they say every time there's any job that opens up ever, even in the NBA, that Jay Wright's name is thrown
Yep.
around. That guy is perfectly fine being on TV, probably making just as much, if not more, as he was being a coach. But regardless, total disaster by Kentucky. And I think Mark Pope is a really good coach, but he doesn't have the tournament pedigree. And you just kicked Calipari to the curb and said, no, I don't want to play with you anymore. Like, really?
Yeah.
But that's what happens. Regardless, I want to talk about Derek Simpson because in losing Lingrier III for St. Joe's, they lost one of the, if not their best defender. Constantly, that guy was throwing on the best player on the other team. As a bigger guy, he could bully smaller players on offense, but also like his defense was so important to St. Joseph's last year for a unit, Kyle, that pretty much in the Billy Lang era, like the defense has been shaky at times. So you bring in Derek Simpson. Yeah, he can't shoot that well. At least the percentages tell you that. But he's fast, he's quick, he's shifty, he can get into the paint. He's got nice size, good strength. St. Joe's recruited him originally before he had committed to Rutgers to play for Steve Pikiell. He's got 2 years left. And the kicker here, Kyle, is he's going to fill that defensive void that Lingrier left, because if you know anything about Rutgers and you know anything about Steve Pikiell, who I'm a huge fan of, and he's been absolutely ravaged by the transfer portal, especially last year. He's a damn good defensive coach, and he demands that. You cannot play for Steve Pikiell if you won't play defense and guard the ball. This is a guy that's going to do that. He comes from a very good program, a very good defensive program. Look at their numbers. They were not good on offense last year, but under Steve Pikiell, they're going to be very solid defensively. So I really, really like this pickup for St. Joseph's, Kyle. I really like this. And how about this? Keeping it in terms of keeping player relationships even after they've gone, it's more important than ever that even after you recruit a guy and he chooses a different school, you never lose that contact. You never end things on a sour note. Justin Scott is a great recruiter. I'm sure he had a big say in that and bringing Derek Simpson to campus. So I know we haven't had too many guys in the Big Five transfer into schools. I think we're only, 3 with Michael Zanoni, Demetrius Lilly, and now Derek Simpson. But
Yeah.
This is my favorite one so far, and I don't know how many more I'm going to like more than this one, Kyle. I think this is an absolutely terrific pickup for Billy Lang at St. Joe's.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll admit I didn't know a ton about him, when he first committed to St. Joseph's, but it does seem like it's a very, very good pickup, especially replacing Lingrier III, who, you know, he was one of the heartbeats of that team last year. Maybe wasn't the most, but didn't have the most scoring prowess out of all those guards, but he did a lot of dirty work that I think they will miss, but I think Derek Simpson will definitely help out with this coming year and hopefully the year after as well. So definitely a great pickup by Billy Lang and company. And looking forward to seeing Simpson play in 24, 25. I think that's about it though on my end. I don't know if you have anything else.
Well, when last time you asked me that, I touched on two different things, so
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
call it.
That's also very true. Um, yeah, no, nothing on my end. It's just crazy that college basketball is over, but there's a lot going on still. So don't you guys worry. We're gonna have you covered. Um, and yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to the Big Five Pod. As always, we very much appreciate your love and support, and hopefully continue to do so throughout this off season and into next season. But for now, if you want to find out what we're all doing, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod. Make sure you like, subscribe on our YouTube channel, of course, for these episodes, and for the audio only versions, make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Tune in there. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.